Homicide is the killing of one human being by another. Murder requires the specific mental state of malice aforethought. Malice aforethought does not require any ill will or hatred toward the victim. Malice is established by proving one of four distinct mental states. The first mental state is the express intent to kill the victim. The second is the intent to inflict serious bodily injury. The third is known as depraved heart malice. This means extreme recklessness demonstrating a conscious disregard for human life. The fourth state is the intent to commit a qualifying felony. This intent triggers the felony murder rule, which is implied malice. The absence of any malice aforethought reduces the crime from murder to manslaughter. The prosecution must prove malice beyond a reasonable doubt. This proof is essential to secure any murder conviction. Understanding these four types is fundamental to criminal law. First-degree murder requires malice aforethought plus two additional elements. These elements are premeditation and deliberation. Premeditation means the defendant thought about the act of killing beforehand. Deliberation means the defendant measured and evaluated the major decision to kill. The defendant must act in a cool and dispassionate manner. The time required for both premeditation and deliberation can be very brief. The defendant must only have had time to reflect and form the specific intent to kill. Many state statutes define specific methods that automatically elevate the crime. Killing by poison, lying in wait, or torture are common examples. These statutory methods substitute for proving actual premeditation and deliberation. If the killing falls under one of these methods, it is automatically first-degree murder. The felony murder rule provides the requisite malice when a death occurs during a dangerous felony. This includes the commission, attempted commission, or immediate flight from the felony. This rule establishes a form of constructive malice. It is often codified as first-degree murder. The underlying felony must be independent of the killing itself. If the felony is assaultive in nature, it merges with the homicide. This merger doctrine prevents the felony from serving as the predicate felony. Qualifying felonies typically include burglary, arson, rape, robbery, and kidnapping, often called BARK. The resulting death must be a foreseeable consequence of the felony. Jurisdictions follow one of two theories regarding who is responsible. The agency theory holds only the felon or co-felon responsible for the death. The proximate cause theory holds the felon responsible for any death proximately caused by the felony. This applies even if the death was committed by a non-felon, such as a police officer. Second-degree murder is the residual category of murder. It encompasses any killing committed with malice aforethought. It must not meet the statutory requirements for first-degree murder. This includes killings committed with the intent to inflict serious bodily injury. It also includes killings committed under the depraved heart theory. Here, the defendant acts with extreme recklessness and indifference to human life. If the defendant intended to kill but lacked sufficient time for reflection, the crime is reduced. Lack of premeditation and deliberation reduces the crime from first-degree to second-degree murder. Second-degree murder carries a lesser penalty than first-degree murder. However, it remains a capital offense in many jurisdictions. Voluntary manslaughter is an intentional killing committed without malice aforethought. Malice is negated by adequate provocation. This is commonly known as the heat of passion doctrine. Adequate provocation requires four specific elements to mitigate murder to manslaughter. First, the provocation must arouse sudden and intense passion in an ordinary person. This passion must cause the ordinary person to lose self-control. Second, the defendant must actually be in the heat of passion when the killing occurs. Third, there must not have been sufficient time for a reasonable person's passion to cool. Fourth, the defendant must not have actually cooled off before the killing. Mere words are generally insufficient to constitute adequate provocation. Some jurisdictions recognize the doctrine of imperfect self-defense. Here, the defendant honestly but unreasonably believed deadly force was necessary. This unreasonable belief reduces murder to voluntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter is an unintentional killing committed without malice. This offense typically arises from criminal negligence or the commission of a misdemeanor. Criminal negligence requires a gross deviation from the standard of care. This deviation must create a substantial and unjustifiable risk of death. Simple negligence is insufficient for this charge. The defendant's conduct must demonstrate a high degree of culpability. Misdemeanor manslaughter applies when a death occurs during the commission of a non-felony crime. The death must be proximately caused by the unlawful act. The misdemeanor must be malum in se, meaning inherently wrong. If the misdemeanor is malum prohibitum, it must involve a foreseeable risk of death. The hierarchy of homicide offenses is determined by the defendant's mental state or mens rea. Murder requires the mental state of malice aforethought. Manslaughter is defined by the absence of malice. First-degree murder requires malice plus premeditation and deliberation. It can also be established by applying a statutory rule like felony murder. Second-degree murder requires malice without the element of premeditation. Voluntary manslaughter is an intentional killing where malice is mitigated by adequate provocation. Involuntary manslaughter is an unintentional killing resulting from criminal negligence. The Model Penal Code simplifies this traditional structure. The MPC classifies criminal homicide as murder, manslaughter, or negligent homicide. These classifications are based on purpose, knowledge, recklessness, or negligence.